with everything that you consider quote unquote bad, if you become very attuned with the moment, you become exceptionally good at noticing that there's an opportunity learning lurking underneath, and you can seize that, and then you are becoming what he calls an alchemist. You are turning base metal into gold because you're turning something that is on paper or on the surface undesirable, but you have enough presence to shift your own mindset, and as you change within, the situation changes without. Hey guys, it's Pablo here with Meditation Amsterdam. I am driving back from Panajachel in Guatemala back to the city, and it's driving up this narrow one-way road up the lake, and there's a lot of traffic going on. So I thought I'd share with you guys a couple of topics that have been in my mind about my visit there, and which help illustrate some of the topics that I had been discussing while I was down at the lake regarding The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And I think that there's a couple of examples where I tried to put whatever the book states into practice, and I had some very good results about it. I also want to tie this topic to the idea of karma, and maybe karma, being such an interesting topic, deserves a video of its own. But if I have enough presence of mind as I'm driving to let's say mention towards the end what the consequence of karma is, and on top of these examples, then I'll try to do that for you guys. So the first example is, I had a funny situation going on with the hotel in which I was staying. You'll see it in some of the clips and some of the photos that I'm sharing on these videos. It's a lovely little meditation center called Las Pirámides, which stands for the pyramids, and it's one of the very first little hotels and buildings that you had in San Marcos, which it's part of the people who started it all. Now San Marcos has truly become a spiritual hub near Lake Atitlan, but at the time when Las Pirámides started, there was not much going on there, and the founder felt that there was a special energy to the place, so she started this meditation center. But these guys have seen a lot of ups and downs throughout the years, and I'd never stayed there, but it always caught my eye while I was visiting the town. And this time I found them on booking.com, and I thought I'd give it a try. And so I booked 3 nights, and when I arrived, one of the people who run the center explained to me that there was this kind of moon course that lasts for about a month going on, and that as a guest in the hotel, I was expected to take part of all the activities, and that included a yoga session at 7 a.m. in the morning, a metaphysics lecture at 10, and then a meditation session between 5 and 6:30 in the afternoon. Okay, and my first reaction was, well, I didn't really sign up for this. I didn't say anything at the time. She was just waiting for somebody to bring my room keys. Now, after I got my room, I came across the daughter of the founder, and she said, "Well, you've been told that you're expected to take part in all our moon course activities, right?" And I knew this conversation was probably coming at some point, and I had already built a little bit of inner resistance towards the whole situation, because I didn't want to take part in any of this. I just wanted a hotel, and I had my own plans for meditation. And I said to her, well, listen, I just booked via booking. I just need a room, and I don't think I want to take part in these things. And then she said, well, I have informed rather all the people who booked via booking.com that that's what's up when you stay here. What you're paying for is the course, for however many days you participate, and the room is kind of a courtesy of the meditation center. And I said, well, look, I didn't read your emails. I've been super busy, so I'm sorry. And but my demeanor was probably one of a little bit of defiance and communicating. Look, you essentially can't force me to do this, right? And so she backed off a little bit, and she said, well, listen, here's the schedule, check it out, and see if you want to participate in some of these things. And I said, okay, thanks. So I took my key and I went to my room. Now, as I went to my room, and mind you, all this interaction happened right after breakfast, while I had been journaling and thinking about the power of now, and reading the book, and thinking about non-resistance to the now, and not harboring, ill wishes or tension within. And something as simple as this, with a person who turned out to be this lovely lady, in the end, brought out a lot of resistance in me. And then within a moment, she had become my enemy, right? That's a big word, but she had become the other. Yeah, the thing out there that is getting in the way of reality being the way I expect it to be. Okay. And but I noticed it very quickly, of course, and then I became very present about it, and I started doing some observation of my inner body, and I started to essentially try to make fun of the little voice in my head that was saying, it's good that you stood up to her, man, because who the hell do they think they are? You booked via booking, so you're in the right. You shouldn't allow them to force you to do things, because you're the kind of person that hates to be told what to do. Like, you always stand up for yourself that way, and blah blah blah, right? So I heard this voice going on in my head, and what I did is I made it the voice of a little child. It was like, well, right, just like this naggy little child. And then I took on a different persona in my head that went like, oh, little Pablo, right? He always tells people that he always stands up for things, right? And it became almost like I started to patronize the voice of the egoic mind, and that meant that I was suddenly on a higher perspective about the topic within, say, 10 seconds, right? And so once the power of the egoic mind had been neutralized, then what I did is I started to have good thoughts about this lady. I said, well, listen, these are people who are welcoming you into their facilities. She's backed off. She's trying to be a good host. Who knows if all these people that come via booking.com are these super rude people who are totally uninterested in her meditation center, and she's trying to offer something that she thinks is of value, and here you are dismissing it in a kind of nasty way, right? And the moment I had those thoughts in my head, I felt the energy inside of me shift completely, and I felt a lot of love for her. I felt just very pleasant in my body. I felt like I wanted to suddenly make friends with her, and maybe even like contribute in some way to her hotel and her meditation center. And all these constructive, cool thoughts started to grow inside of my head. And I thought, wow, this is so incredibly powerful. If you can shift your mindset and your emotions so quickly, just by noticing and then flipping the story, that's something that you need to practice on a constant basis, right? As it turns out, just before I left about 2 hours ago, as I was leaving, she asked how my stay had been, and I sat with her for a chat, and I think that we had both enough presence to understand that there had been a little bit of disagreement and tension in that first encounter, but we both took it as an opportunity to kind of bond, funny enough. And I kind of made a little face as in, listen, I'm very distracted, and I admitted that I may have overlooked your messages. And then she immediately went like, no, it's also my own expectations, because I'm very new at using booking.com. And so suddenly what could have become a source of animosity and just becoming enemies with one another became a lovely interaction where I was telling her about what I do for a living, and she was asking about what she could do to market her hotel in a better way online and stuff. I told her I had been filming these videos, and I was going to make sure to mention her hotel, which is a lovely, lovely place in San Marcos, again, Atitlan in Guatemala, and which is what I'm doing now. And guess what? I mean, we hugged in a lovely way. We said goodbye to each other, and when we said goodbye, there was a sincere wish of wishing that we go and have a lot of good times in the future, and maybe see each other again. So talk about turning what could have been a disaster into a real opportunity. And so this is one thing that Eckhart Tolle mentions in The Power of Now, is that with everything that you consider quote unquote bad, if you become very attuned with the moment, you become exceptionally good at noticing that there's an opportunity lurking underneath, and you can seize that, and then you are becoming what he calls an alchemist. You are turning base metal into gold, because you're turning something that is on paper or on the surface undesirable, but you have enough presence to shift your own mindset, and as you change within, the situation changes without. Okay, so I thought that was worth sharing. And Pauli, if you're watching this, I hope everything is going awesome at Las Piramides, and I'm sending you lots of love. So that was one of the examples. The other example was something that has been a recurring thought in my head, and it had to do with when you're traveling, especially in towns like this that have a bit of a spiritual note to them, you tend to see a lot of these kind of wandering hippies, like these nomads. They're fairly easy to spot. They have lots of tattoos and piercings. They have dreadlocks everywhere, or rather, they have lots of dreadlocks. And they are typically seen by in the little streets selling their handmade art. Sometimes it's just like handmade little drawings and prints and mandalas, things like that, or necklaces, you name it, right? Or some of them are tattoo artists and things of that kind. So what I've noticed is that whenever I see these guys, there's a part of me that wants to judge on them. Okay, I want to start passing judgment on their lifestyle and the way they roll, essentially. And the judgment goes somewhere along the lines of you think you're very relaxed and stuff, but I bet you're probably less spiritual and less relaxed than I am, and just because you don't shower and wear dreadlocks, that doesn't make you more free than me. Shouldn't you be producing something in the world as opposed to just consuming oxygen? And on and on and on it goes, right? And so I'm probably not going to dive too much into the reasons why I think those thoughts appear in terms of the way I was raised, for example. But I will dive into why I think they appear in the present moment. And so I'm going to take an interesting angle on this one, which is to say that you don't have to disagree with the thoughts in order to disagree with the mechanics of what you're doing. Okay? In other words, what I'm saying is maybe these guys should be producing something useful for the world, other than just little, handmade jewelry. Maybe they should take a proper shower. Maybe they should settle down and, I don't know, build a home or whatever. Maybe those things are, let's say, logically correct, if you will. But it's entirely beside the point, because the real point and the real question behind my ongoing, judgment and chatter in my head about these guys is, what's it to you? Like, what's it to me whether somebody does or doesn't do something? I mean, these guys are minding their own business, and while they're doing their little jewelry and stuff, here I am having massive energy sapping dialogues in my head about what they should or shouldn't be doing, right? So I still happen to think that they should shower more, by the way, but so what the hell do I care, right? What's it to me? And the reason this is happening is because even though in practice they are not taking anything from me, um, the egoic mind is a very flimsy, very weak, and very touchy entity. It always feels like it's under attack. And how are these guys attacking my ego? Well, by it's like their very presence invalidates the lifestyle that I've chosen to live, right? Maybe I'm even partially jealous about the fact that they are so free, and the fact that they can go from one place to the next without having to worry about what they're gonna eat next, or how they're gonna pay their mortgage, or their health insurance and these kind of things. And so it could be that there's a little bit of jealousy there in the background, right? So that's something that I need to become very, very present to. But essentially, what it is their choice of lifestyle somehow puts under question mine, and it kind of flies in the face of all this try hard effort about building a career and all these kind of things, right? Now, here's what's interesting. Maybe I'm not entirely over that feeling, right? Maybe that gut reaction still pops up, and maybe a couple of these thoughts about the nomad hippies still hit my head. And right now, as I said hippies, I was thinking about Cartman in South Park, and he's a big time hippie hater. If you look at the hippie episode in South Park, it's pretty funny. But and so I was being a little Cartman, right? I was being this guy who hates hippies, and maybe I'm not completely over that, but the process of disidentifying with my thoughts against nomad hippies has begun, because I'm now fully aware of it, and I'm now fully aware of the fact that these guys haven't taken anything away from me, and that these things are all in my head, and that while I'm having huge battles in my mind, they're just minding their own business and living their life. So I should be doing the same. So I had this massive dialogue in my head about this stuff, and and once again, the technique was to observe it first, right? Make space for those thoughts to just happen, and be very present about them, and then try to turn them into loving thoughts, right? Try to imagine how these guys are somebody's son or somebody's daughter. Try to imagine the fact that maybe they would have rather had a career had they had have the chance, and the opportunity just didn't present itself because of income, or where they were born, or things of that kind. Sometimes when I speak to some of these guys, they turn out to be these sort of mathematical geniuses. They tend to be enormously kind, incredibly intelligent, far, far more intelligent than me. I mean, if these guys ever bothered to go into the corporate world, my God, I mean, they would just wipe the floor with half the workforce, and because they can be incredibly smart. And so when you start to see those aspects of them, the person that they are, the being that they are, resurfaces again, and that image of the enemy that you created in your head about them disappears, and you make room for something a lot more constructive to arise in the way that you are relating to them, and in the way that you are, let's say, working on your own mindset, and the way that you perceive things to be. So that was example number 2, and so I see that I've been now kind of going on for a while, and I don't want to make this clip too large. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mention how this ties to the accumulation of karma in your mind. But given that karma is such a long it's not a long topic, but it's a very interesting topic. It deserves proper attention. So the way this relates to karma in your mind is that every thought that goes on in your head, every action that you take, every emotion essentially creates a karmic deposit in you, and I'm going to go into a lot of detail in the next clip about that. But what I'll say in this one is that those 2 examples that I mentioned were examples where it was important to resolve the issue precisely as it arose, right? The internal issue, and not just to end my own suffering in the moment, or my own upset and anger in the moment, and bring good energy in the moment, but also because that is karma that I don't want to accumulate. I want to nip that in the bud as soon as I possibly can, and less it becomes bigger and bigger as time goes by. And so I'm gonna end this clip here, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a follow-up that is gonna take this as a starting point. I'm going to describe precisely what karma is. There is tons of examples that are very, very cool at illustrating how to work on your karma, if you want to call it that. I'm going to try and give it different names, by the way. So if the word karma is a little bit too spiritual for you, I know it was for me at the start. I feel kind of comfortable using it as a placeholder now. But I'm going to try to describe the mechanism of karma accumulation and cleansing karma, and you're gonna realize that this is one of your main tasks in life, essentially. So we're gonna stop there. Thanks for tuning in. I hope these two examples of how to deal with the egoic mind as it kicks in resonate with you. I hope that I hope it helps you start to notice these events as they come up in your life, and that they kind of resonate with you in that way. And so for whatever it's worth, there's the clip. This is again Pablo from Meditation Amsterdam. I'm driving back to Guatemala City now after a lovely 3 days in Lake Atitlan, and hope to bring you guys some more great content soon. Cheers. Bye.